amazing grace of God. It is an invasion of the sovereign love of God, penetrating the gap of darkness with the overwhelming power of His marvelous light. It bridges the gap between man and God. Take a journey through the amazing grace of God with your host, Sarah Abraham, as she shares the compelling stories of those who walked in His covenant and have overcome by the amazing grace of God.
And now, your host, Sarah Abraham.
Hello, welcome to Amazing Grace. We are so glad that you have tuned in to us today. We are delighted to be with you and bring the amazing grace of God to you from Destiny TV. From all of us, welcome. We are in Houston, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, and now in Austin. Welcome. We are bringing stories that are very encouraging about amazing women of God who have gone through a difficult time or a time of sorrow, suffering, loss, and how by the amazing grace of God they have overcome it. And we want to share with you the amazing grace of God. What is the amazing grace of God? It is a free gift that God has given to all mankind. I would say it's the greatest gift. It's the light that penetrates the darkness. No matter what the situation you may be in, God's grace is enough for us. God's grace is sufficient for us. We have a beautiful, wonderful lady of grace and beauty, Kiva Ori.
Thank you.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Kiva, I happened to read your book and I was totally blown away. You have earned a new respect. Like I mentioned to you, I liked you and I loved you, but I adore you for what you have gone through.
Thank
And
you.
that amazing book was an eye-opener for me. Thank you for coming to this show, and we are honored and blessed to have you.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
You know, this week we are focusing on the amazing women who have lost a child. And your child, Ashlyn, that is a beautiful name. I love that
Thank you.
name, Ashlyn.
Thank you.
I always loved it, but now when I say Ashlyn, her beautiful smiling face kind of, comes in front of me. And she was a child of pure joy, pure joy. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, my name is Kiva. I was married to former NBA player, and we have two amazing children. One has since passed, Ashlyn, that you're speaking of now, and I have a 15-year-old, Cameron. Gosh, I am an author now. I am kind of a jack of all trades. I dibble and dabble in a lot of things, but what's really most important to me is my 501c3 that I've named after and in honor of my daughter, Ashlyn Ori.
Yeah, when Ashlyn was born, the doctors had just given her a few days,
Correct.
but she lived with you
17
17
years.
years. You cannot explain everything, but tell us a little bit about her story, Ashlyn's story.
Well, it's very true. The doctors did not give her a prognosis in terms of her lifespan beyond infancy. And I was beyond blessed to have her the 17 years that I had her. She brought so much joy into our lives as a family. I look back now, she's only been gone for 3 years, but I cannot imagine life without her. And there are pictures still all over my house. I don't know how I don't think I'll ever take them down. They're just there, even though it's still kind of new and as time passes, she's part of me, yes. And I think making those kind of drastic changes to me kind of signifies that she didn't exist, and that's not what I want. It was a very joyful time. Although hectic and very challenging, she offered so much to so many, not just me, but to so many others.
You know, she had a rare disease. You know, I'm a little bit, you know, I'm on Texas Medical Board, and I worked in hospitals for a long time, so I'm kind of aware of it, diagnosis, diseases, and then I read up anything there is. I've never heard of something called IP36 deletion syndrome. Can you tell us what that is?
It's actually 1p36
1p.
deletion syndrome. It is, let me start by saying, when Ashlyn was born in 1994, there was nothing, no information, not even an actual diagnosis. What the doctors told us was that she had a small portion of her number 1 chromosome that was missing. We didn't know what to do with that. What did that mean? They didn't know. They didn't know what was going to happen down the road. All they could tell us was that she wouldn't live beyond infancy. So, in my mind, as a Christian, I obviously was crushed and hurt because I'd heard what the doctors had said, but something just rose up in me, and I thought, you know what, okay, God, man has said what he said, and thank God for doctors. I don't downplay them. They're very important, but I wasn't concerned about that anymore. At this point, I had given it to God, and it's like, okay, you created her. You created her for a purpose, just like you've created everyone else's life for a purpose. You show me what you got. You carry out your word in her life. And that is what happened.
You know, one other thing about you is, you know, you heard everything the doctors had to say, the prognosis and what could happen and what may happen, but you just stopped and says, okay, now God chose me for this purpose. This is my role.
Right.
I'm just going to move forward. Where did that courage come from?
I feel like, and very strongly, I still walk in this conviction that it was a divine assignment, and it was tailor-made for me, and I carried it out the best of my ability with His amazing grace.
Where were you when you first heard this diagnosis?
The day she was born.
Oh, they
She
quickly diagnosed
literally
it?
went from the womb to neonatal ICU.
What they call NICU.
NICU, yes, yes.
Yes, and that childbirth itself is a traumatic experience. And then you had a hard labor.
I had a very quick labor. My difficulties came after giving birth. My blood pressure skyrocketed, and I had no idea why. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know what it was at that time. I chose not to get checked out because I was on a mission to get to my daughter. I was at one hospital, she was at another, and all I wanted to do was get to her. I didn't want to see a doctor. I felt like if I told the doctor what was going on with me, it would just prolong me seeing her. I don't know, somehow that doesn't compute, but it made sense to me. My heart was in the right place. But yeah, she was there fighting for her life, and I didn't want her to be there by herself. So with my condition at the time, it could have very well been fatal. And I eventually did, within a matter of days, see my doctor, and he told me my blood pressure was so high that had I gone any longer, it could have been a very fatal situation.
Did they tell you what causes this disease? Is it preventable? Is it treatable, curable?
There is no cure for 1p36 deletion syndrome. Right now, we are raising money through my foundation, as well as there's an umbrella now called 1p36 deletion syndrome awareness, where we raise money for research, where the symptoms can be readily treatable now. This syndrome comes with so many different complications, and many kids are either misdiagnosed or go undiagnosed for a long period of time. It's a very rare situation. Only 1 in every 5 to 10,000 children are born with it. And we just need to know more. There's so many families out there wanting answers to this question, and we don't have them.
You know, there are some new advances where they do certain surgeries in the womb, certain deletion, addition, or whatever. Any of those procedures are treatable with 1P?
There is what they call a FISH test now. Back in '94, I was 22 years old when I had her, and very young. I didn't feel the need to.
Amniocentesis.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
exactly. So now there are more advanced testing, and because I went my whole pregnancy without knowing, and I had great prenatal care, but like I said, because I was so young, there was no reason to think that any problems would exist. So we are in desperate need of answers.
In your book, you mentioned that you were not prepared, but you were equipped. What is that? What does that powerful statement mean?
I wasn't prepared, meaning I didn't have foresight. The doctors didn't say, oh, your child is going to have, or going to be mentally retarded, or your child is going to have challenges throughout. That was not presented to me during pregnancy. So I literally went into this blind, and God equipped me with what I needed, which was His Word, faith, and I stood on that and stood on His Word, every word in His book.
His words became alive. to
Oh
you.
yeah, oh yeah, oh
You
yeah,
lived it.
more so than ever before.
When you say, I stand on the Word of God, you
yes, I
stood.
literally stood. I did. I prayed over her every single day. You know, there was something about her, and others could see it. People that weren't even Christians could see that there was something really special about her. And it was just God's peace, and you could see her joy and His joy through her. And I've never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it.
So you are an amazing overcomer.
Mm-hmm.
What would you look in the camera and share with our viewers what it is to have a child with a special need? What does a mom go through all that?
Wow, what it means to have a child with special needs. It means a whole lot of love, a whole lot of patience, a whole lot of challenges that you would never expect in areas that you would never expect. I have, if you don't mind, I'd like to read, and forgive me for having my phone, I couldn't print it out. This comes from, it happens to be a professor of mine that I had in college. She has a child with Down syndrome, and a beautiful, beautiful child. But I wanted this to come from a different perspective of somebody else raising a child with special needs. When you think about the cute kid or teen with Down syndrome, remember, they are not a mascot. They are not just sweet people. They are complex and multifaceted, just like you and me. And just like you and me, they need real friends. Friends who invite them over to play on weekends, to the movies, out to dinner. Friends who include them in sleepovers. And friends who call or text, even if they are hard to understand or read. Friends who want to laugh, friends who want to talk about boys or girls, friends who want to complain about the mean teacher, the hard test, or the talk about how fun the pep rally was. It boils down to friendship, and friendship is about taking and giving. Friends embrace the whole person, not just at school, not just for volunteer hours for a school club. Yes, befriending anyone who is different from us is an awakening at first because of race, religion, sexual orientation, culture, or disability. We have to learn to see the person first, and the only way to do that is to spend time outside of school, outside of work, outside of a forced time. They all need what all of us need, to be valued and loved and treasured for who they are. I thought this was so beautiful because I found, even as a mother, some of my friends, although they knew about my situation with Ashlyn, they felt bad for me or felt pity, didn't really want to reach out, and I was longing for those connections or those bonding.
Them don't know how to reach out.
Exactly. And that's okay. But I think a lot of times moms and dads in those situations are afraid or feel like they will be burdensome on someone else and infringe on their time. But it's nothing to just reach out to that person and perhaps just say that you'll sit with them just for a few minutes, or just a little bit of that human touch sometimes is all
Treat
that we
you
need.
as normal.
Yes,
As
yes.
a normal parent.
Yeah.
You know, one other thing from your book that I thought was very interesting was that teachable moment with your son and his friend in the playground when you brought Ashlyn over. Tell our viewers about that incident.
Well, my son was 6 at the time, and he had a soccer game. And one of his friends, I'd taken Ashlyn to the game with me. Typically, I didn't do that, probably because of elements most of the time. She had severe respiratory issues. But this particular time, I did take her, and one of his little teammates walked over to him, and they were in earshot, so I could hear everything. And he says, "Cameron, who's that?" And Cameron's like, "Who?" He's looking around. "Who are you talking about?" He goes, "Who's that? Who's that over there?" And he's pointing. Cameron's still like, who are you talking about?" "Who's that over there with your mom? She's ugly." And Cameron, I could just see his whole demeanor just change. And my heart just dropped because I didn't know how this was going. I knew this was his moment, and I wanted to see how he was going to react. But it was very hard as a mom to, hold back those tears and not walk over there and say something to this child right away. But he goes, "You know what? Nobody cares. She's not ugly. That's my sister." And long story short, I ended up making it a teaching tool. The boys came over closer to me, and I took him by the hand. I said, "Hey," I said, "I want you to meet somebody. This is Cameron's sister, Ashlyn. Ashlyn, this is Cameron's teammate." And she was nonverbal, but he looked in horror, like he was terrified. And I said, "Would you like to shake her hand?" He goes, "No, no."
A typical 6-year-old.
But his mother was sitting two seats over from me, and she was expecting. And I said, "Listen," I said, "your mommy is pregnant with your little baby sister or brother, and we don't know how he's going to come out or how she's going to come out. We're all God's children, and he loves us all just the same." And I know that he didn't understand that then, but I was hoping and praying that at some point he would use that, pull it out of his mental Rolodex when he needed it later on in life. So it was a good moment, good teaching moment anyway.
I thought it was a good teaching moment. And I thought the reaction of Cameron and you and the child and then his mom was a beautiful teaching moment. See, that's how God puts us in at the right place at the right time.
Exactly.
And then we are able to use that moment, for his glory.
Exactly.
One thing, Kiva, I wanted to ask you was, as a young college student with hopes and dreams and aspirations, all of that changed with the birth of Ashlyn.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
My whole life changed. I had her at 22 years, 12, 20, yeah, 22. I turned 23 a few days later. I was on a roll, just like any ambitious college student is, and I had dreams of becoming the next Connie Chung. And by saying that, I mean she was a minority in the broadcast journalism business, and that was my goal. I wanted to be following that path. And I got pregnant, started, a family early, and ended up moving to Houston, and I've been here now for 21 years. Those dreams are still dreams, and let's just say I've been given an opportunity to kind of circle back, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing.
And one thing that's amazing is you went back to school.
I did.
And you got the degree.
I did.
With Ashlyn
Yes.
and Cameron.
I did. I sure
now,
did.
Now that is monumental.
Yes.
With all the
Yes.
stress and all the daily things that you needed to do, you were able to go and complete it. And your family was a big support.
Very much so.
Very much so. So it's important to have good, caring family in
Exactly.
situations like this.
Exactly.
After 17 years of Ashlyn being the center of your life, after her loss, how did you adjust? How did you overcome that grief? What were the stepping stones you took?
I don't know if I could say that you overcome. Every day is an adjustment. To have someone enter into your life and make such an impact, I don't think that you overcome it. You live with it. You live with it. I miss her. I miss her. There are days that I cry, not as much as I used to. The tears are really tears of joy when I think and reflect on my life with her. It's just different. That's all I can say. It's just different.
And to most of us, we think you have moved forward. You're taking the right steps to move on and keeping her memory alive.
Exactly.
And that is with your foundation.
Exactly.
And the book that you have written.
Yes.
Was the book kind of therapeutic to you?
Again, a divine assignment. I would say it was therapeutic. A therapy that I didn't really want. I fought it every step of the way. It took about 4 years from start to completion. And that was because I would put it down. I didn't want to go back to it. I'd pick it up, write more, then put it down, didn't want to go back to it. But when I tell you God is such a gentleman, He's not going to force you to do anything. But He did keep nudging me. He kept nudging me. I kept waking up at 2, 3, 4 in the mornings, and this was so heavy on my heart, and I would have to write. It was something I knew He wanted me to get out, and I'm very, very, very blessed and glad that it has blessed people that He intended for it to reach. So.
And we are offering her book to the first 15 callers who call. So call that number on your screen and we will send you one of
Glamorous
Kiva's
Sacrifice.
books.
Yes.
Glamorous Sacrifice. And we're so glad you have tuned into us today. And if you are going through any of the situations that we talked about or anything, please call that number on our screen. We have counselors and prayer partners here who are willing to pray for you. And thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Sarah Abraham.